Hello, this is Wyland with the FPV Podcast, where we talk about the FPV community and everything we do with our radio-controlled machines. Before we get into the show, I just want to very quickly touch upon our Patreon giveaway. This is a monthly giveaway that we're going to be doing for our Patreon supporters. So we're going to be giving away a lot of great products. So if you're interested in supporting the podcast and being entered into the giveaway, please go over to fpvpodcast.com. That's fpvpodcast.com. Thank you so much for supporting the FPV podcast. All right, folks, you just heard part one, which is the recap of 2017. We're heading into part two, which is looking forward into, well, actually, we are in 2018. I apologize. We're a little late this year. We just had a lot to cover in January, but we're glad to have Joe Scully telling us what's going to be happening in 2018. We got plenty to discuss. Not only big events that are going to happen, but there's also a lot of rule changes that's coming out in MultiGP. Much of them had a lot of controversy. The internet was busy with text and spam, lots of spam. So we're going to try to cover some of that. But before we do that, Joe, you just got back from Sebring, another great race this year. Tell us how 2018 Sebring went.
2018 edition of Sebring was an outstanding event. We had 105 pilots when it was all said and done in individual racing. We also had team racing. We had 12 teams competing and collectively a purse of $32,000. And I think there's only 2 teams that we're waiting on W-9s for. But that means I think we paid the top 6. So 4 of the top 6 teams have got their prize money, and all 10 of our individual pilots have already got their prize money, and we're only about 9 days after the event, which is great to see. A fast payout, which people living up to what their obligations and so forth. Mm-hmm. But an amazing event. I mean, the big struggle with that event, and always drama and politics, but it was canceled. Outright canceled right at the prime time of pilot tickets and sponsorship. And that was first week of January. We've gotten through Christmas, and now it's time to buy those flights before they go up. And okay, we have that marketing budget, and we're going to get behind this event. And right at that time, there was a little bit of a miscommunication between the airport authority and the drone racing organizer, which is Michael Den Hartog with Air Ops. And someone along the chain had said, well, drone racing is illegal. And that had gotten to the legal department of the airport. And it turned into it was a project. And the airport was like, okay, all right, so what do we do? And, we're going to go in a hangar. Well, you're not going to host, 120 pilots in a hangar on one course. No, not for a $20,000 purse, not for a $200 entry. So, we were scrambling other venues and this, that, and the other part. But we also went back and forth with the airport. Now, fortunately, in my wallet, there was 4 business cards that I kept from all year long. One of them is a state trooper from California that I drank whiskey with at the hotel at Flight Fest West, one of my favorite events from last year. I have a representative of the AMA, one of their business cards in my wallet, and one in the Canadian Arm. And the third one, ironically, is the FAA representative for Central Florida that I met at Sebring the year before, who went through our event in Sebring the year before, and there was not one thing that we needed to change. We had accolades, we outperformed his expectations, and he high-fived us. So fortunately, when that event was canceled and we went back, and the airport always gave us an ear because they were looking for a solution too. And so finally, in an email, I said, listen, I don't understand how from a year ago, everything's amazing, and this guy that works in this office with this email and phone number and looks like this said everything was amazing. I don't know how we can go from that to it's illegal. And so all of a sudden they're like, oh, that guy? We know that guy. He's a good guy. And they called him up, and then they called us back. So, yep, no problem. Go ahead. And all of a sudden the event's back on.
It's who you know, man.
It's amazing. Now, it wasn't just that. We tried, and if you ever hear me, debating rules and stuff, or even just my thought process, I should have been a lawyer I love debating. I love all arguments. And just like a lawyer in court, we threw everything at the airport to try and find a solution. And this is the one that stick. So it's not just that. And, a lot of work went into it. So all of a sudden now the event's back on. But, the sponsors that were already signed up were like, yeah, they were called and said, well, the event might not happen. They're like, okay, well, we're not going to proceed then. So then when they got called back, they're like, well, we've reproportioned our money or repurposed our money, whatever. So the event has got no sponsors, and 105 pilots have bought tickets, and we're moving ahead. It started on rocky ground, and from there, I mean, we set up, and we talked in the previous podcast about the first half about starting our events on time and so forth. We tried our best. We started 2 hours late the first day, and then we had course repairs. We started an hour late the second day, or just short of that. And then we made up that 3 hours, and we had other issues with weather, wind blowing down. One of the cool features, I called it Michael's Ladder, or the Tornado Tower. That thing blew down a couple times. We had to fix that, and we ended up getting everything other than 1 pack of practice in. We took it from 5 packs to 4, and then on the team race side, we removed 1 practice round, but we still gave them 1 practice, 2 qualifiers, and we fit this amazing, ambitious schedule in. And it was great. I mean, team racing on its own stood out. That is now part of our saga. That is, we carried the top 6 teams right out of Sebring. We're taking them to Vegas in 2 weeks, where they'll compete. In Sebring, it was for $12,000. In Vegas, they're going to compete for $20,000. All they have to do is get themselves to Vegas. Their hotels are covered. There's no entry fee, and they can win $10,000 for their team if they win it. Just a huge opportunity there. We learned a lot with scoring with team racing. That little bit of drama where the pits were before the start finish line instead of after it, and we had some overpowered quads and underpowered quads, so we had to DVR review the entire final, and it was too complex for most people to do it at 11 o'clock at night, so I had to do it all myself. It took me 5.5 hours.
Ow.
Yeah, not a climactic finish to team racing. We also had an underpowered quad in our individual championship of 8. And so that guy, DVR review, oh, by the way, this guy's second. So not the spectacular fireworks that we wanted there. Ironically, same pilot, same quad caused the issue, moments later in team racing that, that his team's lap count was off because he was underpowered. But there was just too much going on for us to, put 2 and 2 together. In hindsight, we're like, haha, but all that negative stuff aside, I mean, outstanding racing, international field. Tom has been mad at BMS Thomas from Melbourne, Australia, won it. That's his 3rd win in America now. He won spec racing and World Cup at International Open. Now he's won Sebring, and next time he's coming back, he's be going for more monies. He's got over $15,000 so far in his last 2 events here. Definitely cleaning up. But he also
that covered what, 1 flight?
It's actually cheap. It's actually only about $1,400 round trip if you book it in advance. Really? Yeah, so it's not the worst. It's not
sure if you can call that cheap, but okay, I'll go with that for him.
Well, it's the 2nd longest flight that United flies.
Oh, that's true.
Sydney, Australia. Their longest is somewhere in Asia.
You're right. It's cheap in terms of miles per dollar.
Yeah. But and then Captain Vanover and Nurk and Jared inside of that top 10, and so a lot of original names, our OGs, our young guns that we talked about previously. Great racing, both in individual and team racing. The course was a great course. We weren't too optimistic going into it. Because it wasn't designed by us, it was designed by Den Hartog, and Chris Thomas flew back and forth during the construction and made a few changes. The original drawing I saw and made a whole bunch of changes. So it was a collaborative effort, and then yeah, and then what we had, even though we're like, I don't know if pilot's gonna like it, they end up loving it. So great, great course. Shout out to Den Hartog pulling it off in the end. The Tornado Tower, or Michael's Ladder. I called it Michael's Ladder because I wanted everyone to know that it was his idea, and and everyone knows the way I think, that it was like, hey, it wasn't me, it was Michael. So let's give him the credit that he deserves. That's something that is now going to come back even larger at a big event this year. So that guy he comes up with some crazy ideas that are just amazing. So that event, I always talk about how events influence the next, whether it's the tech, the fundamentals, or the lessons we learned. And Sebring, second year in a row now, just a great way to start the year. Bigger person last year. Had it not been canceled and returned back on or whatever, then I'm sure we would have had more pilots than the year before. But 105 was manageable, and people flew a bunch. Racing was great. Weather was in play a little bit with the wind. But it was a great event once again.
Yeah. A couple of takeaways that I saw when watching either 1, DVR footage, 2, HD footage, or 3, a little bit of the live stream. I couldn't catch too much of it, unfortunately, but the track itself was really interesting, right? We're seeing an evolution in terms of what is challenging a pilot now, right? There's only so much you can do. But every year I'm a little amazed that, a tweak here, a tweak there. The ladder thing was great. One of the things that I loved about the track, and I hope this is feedback for you, Joe, because I hope to see more of it, was I actually loved the curve where there was orange fencing on each side, because it gave you a great perspective on speed. And as an audience member, it looked great.
We thought it was going to be so dumb. And you're right. It's another crazy Den Hartog thing.
Right.
And it was a spiral. He actually had it built with Leo. Leo was volunteer of the year at that event, and Kendall that helped Den Hartog build it. Many other people helped as well, but Leo and Kendall and Barrett Tate and his family, Chris Tate, did an outstanding job building that. Originally, it was actually 3 times around, and then Chris Thomas, flew his plane in, and I think you see that video on Alex Edits YouTube, flying to Sebring, checking out a drone race, and Chris is like, whoa, let's make it 2. And then I remember the phone call, and I'm like, what about this spiral thing? Like, it's just a sea of flags, right? And he's like, yeah, it's all right. And like you say, it gave you such a cool perspective with that perimeter fencing, or it's funny. This is one of my Canadianisms, pop and soda. I call that snow fencing, because that's what we use. You put it up and the snow drifts there instead of across your property. But in Florida, I'm like, hey, it's behind the snow fencing. The snow fencing, like, what are you talking about? It's perimeter fencing. But that stuff is super cool. I've seen it in play, I want to say in the Philippines, either the Philippines or maybe somewhere in Malaysia, where they actually lay that out on the ground as a strip to follow the course. And it's relatively inexpensive, but yeah, just I laugh because you hit on that, and just like the ladder, we're like the ladder and the spiral. Everything else was kind of your traditional to the most point. I mean, the flags, the wings and the flag gates, that was from last year. We had 2 dive gates at one point until we removed it. That's all traditional, and your chicanes and the tunnel and the sweeper, all traditional stuff. But those 2 new additions that they turned out way better than we thought we were. We'll give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like, if you remove more gates and did more of the spiral, it's just it's such a unique perspective. And if you can just get a few quads close together, oh my gosh, it was fun watching that. If you could just follow a quad through that, because it looks like a huge space, but when you're flying, that does not feel like a huge space. It's like okay. Anyways, I was nerding out. It's cool. The track was really great. So that's all I'm going to say on that. I will say though, following our track on the Young Guns, which is funny because I'll get Elvin's take on this. Right, the picture of Sebring that I will most vividly remember is Nurk coming in fourth, him taking off his glasses, and his little monologue of saying came in fourth, lost to some fast kids, right? That is kind of like the storyline starting of 2018, because Nurk, he's got a great track record in terms of podiuming, finishing. Fourth is actually really good. It's not anything to say that you're disappointed in my opinion. But it's like you're really seeing it. You're really seeing these kids they're starting to really take over, like you said.
Yeah.
And the international
third is JT FPV, Jonathan Templeton. I think he's from Buffalo, and he's in his mid-teens. And then second was Captain Vanover, and he's in his late teens. And then first was BMS Thomas, who I think is just 16, so mid-teens as well. So first, he's right. Yeah, lost to some kids. Yeah, 3 of them, and he pulled up 4. And then, of course, the guy who crashed out, it was his to win, Evan Turner, who, is just short of 16. I think he's 15 or something like that. So, yeah. Young guns.
I think he just turned 15, right?
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. It's like, I think me and Elvin, and we've talked about this in other prior episodes, is like, and this goes to kind of what I want your take is that, are we doing something wrong in terms of how we're organizing these tracks if the young kids are progressing this quickly? Is there something that we should be looking at to make sure that we don't lose the 30s? Because
that's where the money is. That's where the money is. Tell the truth.
Well, it's also the fact that these guys are the OGs, right? And are they getting pushed out? You can do a couple of things,
right? You could do a DRL, so you have to be 18. As a professional, or what they did with their simulators. I think last year you had to be 21 because it was sponsored by Bud Light. That's one thing you could do. I'm not sure if adjusting the course is going to really make any difference. I mean, we see the natural transition from gaming to flying FPV or RC, but also the reaction time. I mean, it's everything that we talked about when Luke Bannister won Dubai. It's young reaction time. But one of the other things, and this is another Brian Morris quote, I'm pretty sure, is you just don't care. The kids, there's nothing that'll phase them. When they go into the championship, they're as an adult, they're oh my gosh, especially in Dubai. And I'm pretty sure this is Brian Morris's take, was he had a whole team and a sponsor. And so when he went to race, I mean, it wasn't just him. He's all these other guys. And just in the back of your mind, what if I mess up? Or, take that out if it's individual racing, my airfare, my hotel, and it comes down to this. And so the pressure, meanwhile, a kid, not always this kind of discrimination, but they don't always themselves. Have the full appreciation of the dollar, or or the other thing is, I saw it in Reno. I saw tears, people come up to me all right, did I make it? Am I on the bubble? What happened? Or I guess that's it for me. That's where is there a triple elimination race? And I'm no, and the waterworks, right? Some people are that this was my last chance at it. They're at that point. Whereas, Evan Turner, it was his to win. He spiked it into a gate. No one was near him when he crashed in the finals. He took himself out. It wasn't video. It wasn't wind. He just took himself out. And you see his reaction. He's oh, he didn't laugh, but he didn't cry. He's there'll always be another race for him. Right. So I think, that is another big thing that takes a part. And I think as that is to their advantage, it's also to their detriment. Okay. If you look at, and because we've talked so highly of Evan Turner, let's be fair. Let's just, I hate to single someone out, but let's turn it around. One of my highlights of my race director and live streaming career is when when he caused a false start in a race, and that put him into the losers bracket. If you saw that race or you haven't seen the race, I wish I knew the race number off the top of my head, but it was amazing. So we're gridding up. It's a winner's bracket. They on the tone in less than 5. Nothing happens, right? All of a sudden, he takes off. False start. So another guy took off with him as well. So we had to make a bunch of decisions on this. We restarted the heat. I don't think we even let people take off. So we got them regridded. And then my highlight is I go out like the NFL referee, making the announcement like call 1, he's charged a false start. So he loses 1 lap from this next race.
Right.
Call 2, because he caused the false start from racer number 2. Racer number 2 isn't penalized. Call 3, we will blank his first lap, Evan Turner's. If he is able to lap the fields and get onto the lead lap with everyone else, because when the leader goes on their last lap, everyone does, then he technically could win. Like we're not gonna shut him down. So he has to do 4 laps to everyone's 3 to win it, right. Or just get by everyone who crashes. And of course, he almost did it. I think he was only about 3 seconds off of getting by the guy in 4th. He almost happened. He almost got by. Now, that was a setup. Again, amazing. I loved it because I'm out there like a referee. It was amazing behind the scenes. Like that wasn't me making the call. Chris Thomas, who's our CEO and founder of MultiGP, he's technically our commissioner for competition. So I consulted with him. Our team all weighed in on it. So it wasn't just out of our back pockets we came up with that. But I loved how I got to deliver it. It was on video and highlight for me. But what was in it for Evan Turner? That was a rookie mistake.
Yeah.
Okay. Same as him crashing into the gate in the finals. I think this, the lack of nerves, I think that played into what happened for him there. If you are the top qualifier, if you know that when the tone goes, and if you just try mediocre best, you're still going to get by everyone into the start finish gate. You'll get in front of everybody. Why are you jumping on a false start? And if you look at pilots like Jared, I'm a big Jared fan. He's top 3 almost at every event. He just flies smooth until he really has to push it on in the finals. And we've seen him, of course, with his turtle mode at several events when he has issues. But he's always in those finals at Sebring in 2017, 2018, because he knows he only needs to be in the top 4 until the final race. So if we do a bracket and it's 7 races, you only need to be 4th or better. So if you know that you can do the course 5 seconds faster than everybody, why would you risk it going on, like getting that whole shot in the middle of the race? Now then Evan goes into the losers bracket, goes into the finals, and then again he had a 60-foot lead and flew right into the side of a gate. He could have been 4th onto the final lap if he's beating everyone. Like his seed time was like 6 seconds off. His fast off everyone else. His fastest lap was 3 seconds off the next guy's fastest. Like he got $1,000 in dash cash. I think he had like a 19 and the next guy was 22. And that was that guy's best. And Evan was 19, 20. Like, So that's where I think, the nerves, that was a rookie mistake. And in the live stream, he got lucky. He got lucky in an even earlier race with something else that happened. He had a video issue or something, right. and it actually worked out for him. And then he had the whole shot thing and that, put him in the losers bracket, and then he crashed in the gate at the end. So again, youth, it doesn't always work to their favor that, you have to be smart. Now, in his defense, and I'm a very competitive person, especially in my rodeo background, if you play it safe, you're often more likely to have stupid mistakes, right?
Right.
But, that's where I would say that, nerves really come into play. And with FPV, I mean, there's often no recovery. I mean, it's with rodeo, if I make a mistake, if I'm trying to rope something, then I can usually, at certain points, I can recover. There's no recovering, off a hard hit. Yeah.
Right. I totally agree with that, but I think that the younger kids don't practice enough. I think that a lot of them don't have the proper regiment for practicing. They tend to go out. Everybody likes to do freestyle, right? There's a little bit of creativeness in us all, and we all like to tend to fly a little bit ways. Like me, I like to fly, flip inverted and just hold it there, And that's just what I do almost every time I'm doing freestyle. It's the thing I like. And if you don't have a great regiment or something set down in stone to follow, and that's where the older pilots have the advantage, because a lot of them have learned through the processes of failures, right? That you need to learn to work on this, and you got to work on, like, you got to sit there and you got to work on that start, right? You got to learn to put that quad up on its 15, 16 degrees, or depending on how you start, 25 degrees. Some of the guys are way up in the 30s, on the edge and launch, and if you're not confident in that, you're not confident that you can pull away from the rest of the bunch, which gives you that anxiety, or the mental mistake mode where you go into, where you're just sitting there, and then you make that mistake, and it happens. You didn't hear anything, you just took off because you were just trying to guess when it was going to happen, right? And a lot of these pilots, the younger pilots, don't have that experience. The older pilots do, because most of the older pilots have been flying for a year, or racing for 2 years now, like me from 2015. So I have that time frame, but I wait. Like if I know the buzzer, when you say we go in 5, I wait till I hit a buzzer to move. I don't arm, and sit there and wait on the edge. I wait till you say go, and then I arm and I take off. A lot of those younger pilots don't do that. So I just think that if you are a younger pilot, learn from the older guys' example. Take your time, practice everything. Is a reason why you make mistakes is because you don't practice enough. And stuff happens, and we all talk about that. But you need to practice a little bit more and work on a focus of what you need to be practicing on. One day maybe practice only in your start gate. Practice making that first turn in the gate and being in the whole shot, the next day. And work on those things. And that Michael's ladder was just phenomenal, dude. Just it like I've talked to about 30 pilots since then, and everybody's like, we got to do that. We got to do that. We just got to do that. It was such a great idea, and it was one of the highlights of the race.
Yeah, I was very surprised on how, like, he put some thought into it. So I think in the first podcast there, the first half, where I talked about in Reno, we're like, oh my gosh, Den Hartog, I need weight. I need to weigh down all these gates. What do I do? And he's like, buy play sand, because play sand, you go to Lowe's and it comes in a bag. I mean, just like buying bags of concrete, it's a little cheaper. And, it's already bagged for you. You throw it down. And I mean, that's something that comes from experience that he has in his pro audiovisual and stuff like that. But I mean, the thought that went into that ladder, like, if you or I don't want to, Chris Thomas is really good on this design, so I don't want to say he would do this, but I'm guessing he would try this way first. But if we were to build that, we would take all of our 90s that we use for a double gate, like your traditional, what you see in a regional series, regional qualifier, just keep building that up. And that thing was 40 foot high or something like that. That would, there's a lot of risk. There's there's a lot of things that could happen to that gate. And, it's a sail when it's up there, right? But Den Hartog, and maybe he tried that and it didn't work, but what he did is he actually built them all in 10 by 10 frames, and they were all bungee corded together instead of joined, so that the wind, as long as we anchored it well, like, it was going to billow a bit, but the bungee cords were able to take that out instead of, now you have all these critical breaking points. So it was so genius. And I'm like, yeah, all right. That's how you did it. Good job. It did have its flaws that had to be fixed as we went on, but I mean, there was some pretty crazy wind. Like that thing, was contorting, and it wasn't all gold. Like that machine, if we had to fix one of the elevated gates or go to a high place, the machine that was holding up the ladder, we needed to drop the ladder and go move it, and then do whatever we needed to come back and then raise the ladder and try and get it exactly where it was. But yeah, like I said, totally genius, totally fun, and something that you'll see in Sims, people practicing, and total genius thing that'll be added to our repertoire of things. When it comes to the kids though, practicing, good advice to practice more, but find someone to mentor and look at their program. Night Fury with Night Fury's DVR only Facebook group. You can see his regimen. He does voiceovers. He's like, all right, today I'm only working on this, and this is how I'm going to achieve it, and you can learn that way. But it doesn't have to be OGs as influences. I mean, if you look at Dolma and Heads Up FPV, they were all in like the top 10 in the DRL sim competition, but they weren't 18. So, other people got their spots. Right. They're flying sims all the time. Those guys are practicing, but as you said, young guys as a whole, I would think that these guys at the top, they're going just as hard. And yeah, you have to treat it seriously. It's practice makes perfect. One of the things that Sean Taylor has said in podcasts previous and stuff like that, like when you're on a sim, what he'll do instead of like what I do, I crash in the gate like 90 seconds to do the regional finals course. With that, I have the toggle switch, so it'll reset, and I'm back at the line and I try again, and I'm back at the line and I try again. It took me a long time to get to the 90 seconds. I've only flown 30 packs for real. But what Sean Taylor does, if he's flying the sim, whether it's liftoff or Velocidrone or whatever, when he crashes, he puts his controller down and he goes for a walk. Then he comes back and then he tries again. And then when he crashes, he simulates the entire race experience. And, you can't, if you go into that sim, look at the DRL sim. I'm not going to, the contest was great. A huge fan of it. But it also gets a lot of bad habits if you want to actually improve your racing skills, because the whole competition was to be in the top 10 or whatever it was, the ranking. You had to run 5 courses, course 1, course 2, 3, 4, 5. If you mess up, because it was your combined time, if you mess up, you got to go back to the beginning. And people are like, I flew that one course 500 times. Hey, great. You're learning. But when you go to a race, like I'm bragging on 18 pilots flying 5 times one course in a day as a practice. Maybe we'll do it another day as practice and we get into qualifying. I'm bragging that I can give you 5 if it's a big money event. You can't exceed that. You have to have your sim ritual be like your real ritual, and you have to overthink it. You have to put yourself in the situation. One of the other things that comes up, whether it's and it's all ages. They'll be at a race. And this happened, my very first races, when I had pilots from Ready Made RC, Ockbots and Tyler Miller, Travesty, come up from Ohio to a race in Canada. And I'm commentating the race, and there goes Ockbots. He's your leader now on to lap number 2. Crash. And then, now that's a big open opportunity for Travesty. He's up and crashed. And then every time I'd say their name, they'd be like, huh? And they crash. So the announcer jinx, that's a whole other thing. Now people, that was when I was unknown. Like I'm not on videos and live streams of 20,000 uniques, Now, like I go places and they're like, I can't believe, they'll come up to me. Like, I'm so excited that you're actually going to call me in a race. And I'm like, dude, do not listen to me because it's gonna screw you up. Afterwards, like, dude, put in like
to knock you out.
Yeah, hook up your phone or your iPod or something, dude. Like, listen to the Boots and Pants, that BPM music, and it's recorded. Play it back in the live stream. Yeah, I'll talk about you. But the old announcer jinx, and it still happens today. But another thing that you have to practice for, that practice regimen just goes so far, and I'm one of the world's biggest Night Fury fans, and just any advice that I can give anyone who wants to be competitive. I'm taking from a lot of his stuff. Like there's some rodeo stuff and other competition that I'll try and sprinkle in there. But the advice that guy gives out, just if you can furrow half of what he's plowed, in the practice regimen, then you'll do better in competition.
Definitely. Yeah. It's one of those things where you're going to have to find your blend, and you're going to have to be very clear and precise in what your goals are. And so we're going to move on from the Sebring race because we need to, but it goes into kind of what we want to discuss next, which is going into 2018. There's going to be a lot of changes going on in MultiGP, and some of it's going to affect a lot of people, and some of it, I think it's going to discourage some people. So we definitely want to discuss that because, like, I've gotten a lot of emails. So some of these questions are actually directly from people that have emailed me asking my opinion. And I was like, why are you asking me? I'm just a guy on a podcast.
We should do a brief disclaimer real quick that I am the executive vice president of race production for MultiGP. And I have a long history with MultiGP that I'm actually on retainer with MultiGP. So they have first preference of all dates. I also contribute 25 to 50 hours per week year round to MultiGP. I work with a great team, our new president, David Roberts, and Hefty and Sean and Shannon Broussard with chapters, and Daniel and Chris Thomas, the whole team. And I know I forgot a couple people, Reese, Michael. We all work on these documents and these rules. So I have to be very careful that I'll respond with my opinion, maybe how we got to those rules or some of the discussion, but any views expressed by me are not official views of MultiGP unless I identify as such. I have to be careful there that, there's stuff that I may not have agreed with, or there's stuff that, that's my baby. And I don't want anything that I would say to be disparaging or biased for or against any regulations of MultiGP. And Chris Thomas is my best friend.
And there's the lawyer disclaimer. It's about 12 pages long, so that'll be in the comments below. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, we understand.
I didn't say it.
I didn't say it. It's all digital, man. It's all recorded. But I am going to
redact it.
The only reason I do that is we when Todd Wall, who was our former president of MultiGP, and many people didn't even know that, they see him from live streams and with FPV Live, and he's a co-founder of that with Chris Toombs. They didn't realize that he's doing all these MultiGP races, that he was our president. And then in his absence, before David Roberts got that role, I took the lead on a couple of projects. Everyone jumped in on something, and I was doing a lot of the communications with tier 1 chapters, and I still chair the odd tier 1 chapter meeting, and I'm releasing official data and responding in these groups. And a lot of people are like, why is that loudmouth commentator from the live streams commenting on that? So that's why I have to do that disclaimer that been there, done that kind of thing. And
most of the tier 1 guys and also the regulars know why you're there. But I can totally see it's a big chapter, and there's a lot of people looking at this because it's caused a lot of controversy. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I'm going to keep these questions general, not to call out anybody who send out these questions to me. So the first one's actually an old one, and I'm just covering it to get your opinion on, which is the whole turtle mode controversy that came across in actually 17 in nationals. What is your take on turtle mode? Because I personally think it was overblown, but it's a natural progression of technology, and you just have to deal with it. I just want your take on it. What is yours take?
So we did a survey, and with some things we did like 19 surveys. It was 3 on the open versus 4S thing. So we really liked our surveys this year. That's kind of a smart ass, but we really do want to make sure that it's what our pilots and our chapters want. But with turtle mode, there was some confusion in the original survey because we said, do we want this to be the turtle mode or the NASCAR rule? And that is, and so people voted turtle mode versus NASCAR, not really understanding the question because it wasn't worded well. When we were going down that road, that rabbit hole, as it were, we were wondering, when does the race end? Does the race end? The lifetime scoring software is set up because it's standard in any type of racing that they do. And the way that I enforce races, and I call it the NASCAR rule, when the leader goes on their last lap, everyone goes on their last lap. And that's when it's heads up racing, which is first to X laps. Now, that's there's some controversy, and we called it, do you want to do it NASCAR way or the turtle mode way? Because this has come up so many times. It comes up huge in Europe because they do not believe in the NASCAR way. And I can't wait to watch an F1 race and try and stay awake to watch the end to see what they do in F1, because I'm pretty sure it's the same. In NASCAR, and this is what is put in MultiGP, is when the leader goes on their last lap, everyone goes on their last lap. So Evan Turner is your leader in not the final race of Sebring, but the second last race. He's your leader. And then there's BMS Thomas in second and Vanover. And then you got Jared. He crashed out. I'm just making this up. This isn't an exact reenaction. This is an example. So when it's a 3-lap race, race to X laps, when BMS Thomas he crosses on lap 2 onto lap 3, he still has to finish it. We basically put a flag there. So as soon as he crosses over, now everyone is going to cross onto their last lap. So right with him, Captain Vanover goes on his last lap. Right with him, Nurk goes on to his final lap. Then all of a sudden, now you got Jared. He gets up. He's turtle moded, just like he did the World Cup at I.O. He's a lap back. He is crossing on from lap 1 onto lap 2. He still has 2 more laps to go. But now when he crosses through that gate, he's a lap back, but he just crossed by that white flag. I've had to explain it numerous times in numerous languages, and I've used all kinds of examples. I'm like, just pretend we're putting condoms on people when they go through the gate. Okay. You understand? When your condom's on, you're going to be done. Right. So, he goes through, he gets the white flag, the condom is on him. He can only finish that lap. And where it gets confusing is, let's say Nurk, Vanover, and Heads Up, they crash out. Now Jared he flies by them. He comes around to the gate, when the way our rules are now for 2018 and how I always enforce races and how Lifetime runs their races, when Jared crosses over, he meets the checkered flag. He only gets 2 laps. Even though he can keep flying and go to 3, he's done it 2. So now it's a measuring contest between those other guys who crashed on lap 3 because they brought out the white flag. And so that's the NASCAR rule. I call it the NASCAR rule because when you watch NASCAR, when Earnhardt or Kyle Busch or whoever's racing, when they go on to their last lap, everyone does 1 more lap and then the race is over. They don't wait for Danica Patrick to come out of the pits again and do another 75 laps, to fill their grid, fill their podium or whatever. So it's the NASCAR rule. Now there's a little bit of debate because, we're not doing 200 laps for 2 hours. We're doing 3 to 6 laps in 90 seconds. It's a little bit different, but that's why, that's the rule that's in place. And so the reason that we like it and the reason that it's in there is because it saves people sandbagging. Now, not to single out Jared, as I've said, I'm a huge Jared fan, but him and Nurk and Falcon X, maybe Jaws, they were all in the same RV going down to Sebring. But if you watch practice and qualifying, they were actually in a race to be the last person off the takeoff podiums in qualifying because they knew they only needed 3 laps to qualify. There are people that didn't do that. The cutoff was very achievable for them. So they didn't need the whole shot in qualifying. So they would literally sandbag it, but legally, because they didn't need to over push it. Remember what we talked about, the young guy that's pushing themselves too far, realizing that they just need to be a certain point. They don't need to win every time they go out there. They played it right, played it smart. But you don't want that in a final race. You want everyone to go. They're trying to win. It's called the first to X laps. Let's push everyone to the first to X laps. Where the confusion comes in, because we said the alternative to that is turtle mode. Do we, in the case of someone turtle modes back up and everyone crashes out, do we wait for that guy to finish the race? And so that's why we had that vote. And the vote was interpreted one way, and then we said this is the rule, we're enforcing NASCAR rule, and we're going to move ahead. I'd used in earlier discussions 32 Bits of Gil in Reno as an example, but I've watched that back, and he was actually legit crossing on to the same lap. It was very close. He almost got lapped, and he would have been victim to the NASCAR rule. But you have to look at that. Look at Jared at the World Cup, where he got fourth to whomever. So that's why that rule is there. Turtle mode as itself, it's come into play for 2018. The confusion is that, we disallowed it because we went NASCAR rule, and it's actually nothing farther from the fact. We welcome turtle mode. You're allowed to turtle mode. Turtle mode all you want. If you can get up and it's going to get you that extra lap, or it's going to get you that extra position, whether it's practice or qualifying or in the championship, then definitely do it. And I like to see it. Everyone paid the same registration. But one of the other things that we have in the past is we've had a line flipper, where if you get a bad start off the line, we'll flip you. We've now taken that out. It was something that we couldn't enforce because people running races, not everyone wanted to put someone in that position. It's very dangerous, and especially now with the addition of turtle mode, we don't know. We're not going to go near it. So we allow turtle mode, but as soon as that beep goes, no one is touching a quad till the race is over. And when it's first to X laps, which you're going to see in brackets, which you're going to see. When you're going to see it brackets and eliminations and A main, B main, C main stuff, when the leader goes on their last lap, everyone goes on to their last lap. As a race organizer, if you want to run it the other way, you can shoot me or Corey from Live Time or Shannon Broussard, our chapter coordinator with MultiGP. You can send us a note, because there is a way to program Live Time to allow those turtle mode people to get their full 3 laps in with the software, but it's not something that we're going to publicly do it because we don't want to confuse it, as we already have to this point.
Gotcha. And that's a really good explanation to I don't think it's a controversial subject anymore because there's enough time to blow over, but I guarantee you there's still going to be people in 2018 that's going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Or get angry at you because they still don't understand the rule, because this is going to happen. It is.
Yeah, we put it, and it's actually Hefty Puente, who is, and he's our branding officer with MultiGP. He is one of the guys that's very vocal in debates online because he bleeds MultiGP, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We love that. But he's been the one who's been taking all these rules and working and massaging them into our rule book, and he's done an outstanding job. Anytime something's come up, it's gone through our executive team, and and then we've taken it to tier 1s. We've done surveys, and it's really exciting.
Second question that I was asked, and this is kind of interesting, right? Because you've been known to be the re-race fairy, and there has been questions asked about me numerous times. It's just not once, okay? Is when is it okay to because like when you get a re-race, you get a do-over, right? It's like when does a guy get a do-over, and why does this guy not get a do-over, right? So I don't think you've seen the chatter, but I've seen a lot of questions asked about that. So like what is your opinion about that, right? Because like I got bad video do-over. It's like re-races are kind of, especially in big prize pools.
Yeah, exactly. So the first is defined in the rulebook majority reasons for re-races, and that'll be in practice and qualifying. Usually when we get into the championships where it's brackets and it's first to X laps, that is thumbs up for a good video or all bets are off. So video issues often bring re-races. There's also, stuff in the book that we just wrote in for 2018 that if I'm pretty sure this is in there, mid-air before the timing gate in championships would be a restart. But when it comes to like re-races for like Sebring, I guess there was, there was a few re-races and I made comments like, I know I'm usually the re-race fairy and so forth. Video issues are one thing that we can play back, and if it's bad on our DVR, then for sure that it was bad in the pilot's goggles. And video issues, if we can look at it, and if we can't say that it's a pilot issue, then especially early in the program, we'll usually just go on the side of the pilot. But me personally, there's a lot of criteria that goes into it. Like if if they don't make it past the first turn and they have a video issue, and this is someone that it's just their quad, I may, you don't see what happens behind the scenes. I'm like, listen, I understand, you got to get something together, there's something wrong with your quad. I know you keep coming to me and saying you're getting stomped on and bled on. We've proven to you, and whether you choose to believe this or not, that is your quad, not our gear. We're going to give you one last one, and I don't care what happens. Even if our equipment fails, you're not going to get another one. But I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to do one lap. So there's a lot of instances. There are, we try and do it as fair as possible. And, I understand in any competition that, someone who may not be confident enough to come up and ask, then they're like, well, how come that guy? Well, you didn't ask. Early in a program, video issues, like in Sebring, we had a heebie-jeebie situation happening with seat number 5. We gave a lot of re-races because we couldn't pinpoint, it was something going on with their video receivers that, and it didn't happen every time. It did. And so, is it a quad problem? Is it a cable problem? What is causing that? We don't know. And so, we also had a cabling issue where it wasn't bright enough because of the way that we had to cable, because it was a really unique situation. So we know that there's a video issue there that some people are getting, some aren't. So, we'll give you a re-race. But for the most part, and then the other thing, this is where it really, really get confusing, is someone would get out to the line, their quad's not ready. Well, we give them a re-race. Now, in a traditional race where you're running heats, I'm out. Can you move me? Yes or no? Maybe I can, maybe I can't. If it's a bracket, I obviously can't. If it's a qualifier, it's your first time, extenuating circumstance, I can either give you 2 minutes. If I can fairly move you and it's not going to affect the competition, I'll do that. Using our tablet system, and we just want to keep cycling. This guy's overpowered. Okay, boom, pull him, let him go fix his stuff. We'll give him a re-race. So it seems excessive, but if it's you, you'd want the same thing too, right? We could just say, all right, you're underpowered, give her, and then that guy's going to lose video. His experience is going to be terrible. He could affect someone. He could have bad video and hit someone. He could have a VTX that's going underpower, way overpower, and affect someone. So it's easier for us to pull someone right at the line and give them a re-race. One of the things that you also don't see in the live stream, so it's awesome that I get a chance to defend this. So Mac Poswald, I heard on radio, because we have radios on our crew, and people are like, they're saying Mac has a lot of video re-races. Like, why is he getting so many? Now, the system that I have with the tablet system is advanced every single event. Every time I give someone a re-race, I actually hit a button like on my phone, and it logs on the Google Sheet, so I can go through and see exactly how many people I've given re-races to. I also put a little reason, whether we pulled them at the line. Mac, when we do these tablet systems, you're not with the same people every single heat, so you never know what the variable is. And Mac could be like, my video's bad, which you don't hear on microphone, what you don't see, and I did it twice to him. I'm like, hey, dude, take off. If it's bad, land after the gate, I'll give you a new one. The reason that we do it, it's in qualifying, it's early, but instead of pulling them and seeing if it, the problem's going to fix, it may fix. 50-50, it does fix. But I've made that call with the pilot, and I do that with anyone and everyone. Whether, and I don't know the names. I know Mac because I know this instance, and people said, yeah, Mac got a lot of reruns. Well, no, he got, I think it was 3, and off the top of my head, I know 2 of them. I told them to take off, and together I said land. You probably hear me say land. But and then we get to a point, late in the day that, and it's very sad to say this, and slap me on the wrist, but this person hasn't done a lap all event, and they've had video issues, and it's them. I've given them more re-races than I should, another opportunity, and I give them one more and slap me on the wrist for doing it. But I've made the call, and I would eat myself, but I've made the call that no matter what happens, this guy is not gonna make the cut, It's not going to affect anyone. And yeah, he gets one more pack than everyone else, but you know what? Maybe that's the one that the guy finally gets to do one lap, or he finally gets his 3 in. Is it affecting competition? You know, people could argue with me nonstop. They're like, yeah, well, that guy shouldn't have been out there. So if he hits someone, that could affect competition. I am aware of every one of these re-races that I give someone. So I would know. And you know what I would have to do? I would have to do a big announcement. That guy shouldn't have been out there. I let him out there. So I'm giving that guy that affected a re-race. Like, I always do the right thing. It seems like I'm giving favor to my friends. It's because that's the way I manage an event. Like, a lot of these people are not my Facebook friends. We're nice to each other faces. They hate me. They think I'm a loudmouth. You know, so they think, some people think I play favorites. I don't play favorites, and I get really upset, and I defend myself if I ever get accused of favoritism. I have some great stories of that, because I'll defend it to the death. And if you ever call me out, I'm also, you know, I should have been a lawyer. You know, if you prove me wrong, then, you know, free roll. You know, we do, you know, so I just try and do the right thing for everybody, make it fair. But, you know, I don't think it made it on the live stream because it's not something I wanted on the live stream. But, you know, I think I kind of said, you know, it got out of hand at one point that, you know, the video issues were solved, and, you know, we started power testing more, which is another big solution. But I said, guys, listen, I know that I'm known as the re-race fairy, but I'll tell you what, the re-race fairy is on the rag today. You know, that's a sexist comment. Shouldn't be saying that, but, you know, I'm like, you know, we've cracked the whip, you know.
Right.
At a certain point in the program, you know, everyone has flown 5 qualifying rounds and had 4 practice. So you've had enough chance. So, you know, and that's kind of where it's at. I mean, I don't think I've given a re-race that I've regretted. And if something has, I can't think off the top of my head, then if I do something that messes something else up, then I make it right. I mean, I've caused restarts. Even Sebring, I called a restart when I shouldn't have. I made a false start because I coughed or I giggled. That's happened before. You know, everyone gets a re-race because I screwed it up. Some guy, the module trick. This is my last example. We'll go to the next question. The module trick, because there's only one module that's not Fat Shark. That there's only one module of the True D, the Furious D, the Clearview, anything. There's only one brand, one model of module that won't bleed through. The best thing when you're using a ground station, you have to take it out. There's a trick to get around it. It's called the module trick. During a heat, someone was like, and so I went over to explain to them while everyone else is flying, and a pilot was like, Scully, explain later. And meanwhile, I'm trying to talk to this guy because I don't have later. And he's like, come on. Now, that guy talked to me twice. I distracted him. I gave him a re-race. It was the right thing to do. I affected his competition. So, you know, something else that's unavoidable. I mean, I play it right. You know, I may get trolls, I may get haters, but I probably have a 98% approval rating because, you know, as I say, if it was you, you'd want the same thing too.
Right. I totally agree with that. And the takeaway from this, and I don't think this question was asked in malice, by the way, because I don't want you to take it that way. And the takeaway that I think for the advice for the person who asked the question is never be intimidated about asking the race director for a re-race if you really feel like you were affected, because the worst he can say is no. Now, you know, once Joe Scully says the keyword "all bets are off," then you're probably not going to get one. I'm going to be honest with you, but it's never really hurtful to ask, right? And go ahead.
Exactly, and like the goggle thing. So the goggle thing, the module trick. This is something that, you know, we try and say, and every pilot knows, and we try and catch on the line, right? Before we take off. If your module, and again, it's only one model of one of the aftermarket modules that doesn't do this, every one of them does it, they bleed over top. You will, you know, we try and get it on the line. We're like, how's your video? You know, thumbs up, goggles down, thumbs up for good video, you know, positive confirmation of video. That's when we try and catch it. And if you like, you know, we catch it almost every time. Sometimes we don't, and there's times that we don't. So even though on our DVR that video's mint, and that pilot, you know, his video's garbage. Now, that's pilot gear, right? If it's the last round of qualifying, then you're not going to get a re-race. But like you said, always ask. And, and if it's the first pack, I may give a re-race 9 times out of 10, most situations, unless I do a big thing about it, or I know that then I'll give you a rerun. Usually if your video is wonky, you're going to crash or you're going to land anyway. It's a moot point. You'll get a re-race. But at least let's have the discussion so that I can ascertain if it's our equipment or your equipment, because both of us need to know that, and then, we can learn together. And then again, the way that I run a race is different than other race directors, but you should always be able to ask at a certain time. And I think anyone would tell you at a race that I'm at, I'll hum and haw, and I do say no, for sure. But, oftentimes, tie goes to the runner, and I will do my best for any pilot, and I take my job very seriously. I look at precedent, at a certain point. Well, I gave this guy a free roll, like a rerun for the module thing, because his own module, his own gear was bleeding over in, qualifying round number 1 and 2. So then, the next guy, I already know I did this, what's fair. I may go to an event where we have a timeline and I won't do it, or whatever. Like I'm trained to be an official in other sports. And I know, when soon as you make your first call, that affects every call. Right. But yeah, you got to have the conversation, and, the nicer you are, the better it is. Kill them with kindness.
Truth.
Now my favorite is, I had a DVR actually go in a pilot's favor, and I swore up and down. I'm like, dude, I was watching your feed. No way, no how. And he's like, listen, you got to play it back. I'm like, well, whatever it was. And so, we played it back, and I'm like, holy Jesus, you actually won. I high-fived him. I'm like, you fought the law and you won. Congratulations. Like, I'm on your side. Like, that's great news. Right. But yeah, you got to have the conversation, and then you're going to learn, whatever it is.
In those big events, especially the first time, or it's just not going your way, it's so easy to get lost in not want to do that. But in these large competitions, because the reason why I asked Joe Scully is because obviously he runs the largest competitions here in the United States. So you have to be confident in going up there and talking to Joe Scully. And by the way, he's like the easiest guy to talk to. Literally is. He's just one big jelly bean. So just go up there and talk to him, say hi. Just not,
I don't know about jelly beans.
Okay. Just not at at a time when the race is 3 hours overdue and we have to get out in 45 minutes. You probably going to lose that.
We have flashbacks to 2017.
I'm doing these bigger events now, and we're adding more people to the team. These events are getting more efficient. We're getting bigger budgets and so forth and stuff like that. So we try and address things right away. And so, I can usually get an answer out of someone pretty quick, and we try and address it on the spot where we can, and vice versa. But yeah, you gotta ask. The worst is no. And I've and if I say no and you say but, and I'll listen to your but, and we'll get to a point where I'm like, you're not changing the answer. I'm more than happy to have the discussion, later and again, and and go back and forth. And I think that's with every call, because I understand the question was without malice, but I stand behind what I did. And when I do those re-races, or every decision that I made, and at the Ursa Championship, the one that got, the hurricane ended early before it was all said and done, I made a really bad judgment call, because I understood the rules wrong, and a team in the middle of team racing asked me, can we do this? And then I said yes. And so then I put that in as all right, going forward, this is a new rule. Not everyone heard it. And so there are people competing under 2 different rules. And so I actually got up on stage, explained at the end of it, and I'm like, hey guys, I screwed up. I screw up. Well, everyone makes mistakes. Here's what I did. Here's what I did wrong. Here's why. Here's what we can do to make it right. And here's my personal apology. And I take what I do very, very seriously. I'm involved in too many parts of a race, because I'm also tech, and I take the video and the live stream and the commentary and the throughput and the flow. And but I take, every decision, to heart. And And I could go on for hours about some of these interesting calls. And you'll see that clip that I talked about where I'm doing the NFL referee thing. Call one, call two, restart, first down, like highlight, because I love officiating and debating and understanding the implementation of rules.
There you go. And that's why he's a pro. But no, very good answer to an otherwise innocuous question. But I'm glad you answered it because it does come up every once in a while when people talk to me, and that was a great answer. So, okay, 2 more, and then we will be done with questions. I'm not going to kill you with questions.
I love questions.
Heat times. Heat times has been debated back and forth. I am pro longer races. Obviously, there was where did the decision to try to reduce heat times come from? And then what was why was it rolled back and then it became a survey? What was the whole thing? Because I got lost in between all of that.
Yeah, you and me both. So it's very interesting. That's the 3 surveys that were released to the pilots of MultiGP to decide for the regional series, and a regional series only. I mean, if you want to have a chapter race and run only a 3S class, we welcome that. We want that, But for the regional series, do we keep it 4S like it was last year as a limit, and the year before? The year before that, our first year, it was 3S as a cap. Do we keep it at 4S or do we open it up, open limit? And so survey number 1, same as with the NASCAR and the turtle mode, the question went out, and they're like 4S. That's what we want. That was what the majority vote was. We're like, cool. Now, looking at most recently, the most recent event to that was the Mega Drone X, and we had people falling out of the skies. When they got onto that final lap in qualifying, because qualifying, you race against the clock. It's not, the white flag comes out when the leader goes on. You go to 2 minutes. If you cross over at a minute 59, you get an extra lap. And if it's 40-second laps, which, some of these bigger courses are, like Sebring was, 35 seconds for most people, you go full throttle for another 35 seconds. So even though it's a 2-minute heat, it's actually like a 2.5-minute heat in qualifying. When you look at the regional finals, I was at 3 regional finals in 2017, and of course, national championships. The big story in Reno, the big story in all season long on the regional finals course was how many pilots would get their 6 in. The magic number is 6. Very few did. People got onto it and they puffed their pack. At Reno, we had a different course. And then I think the number there might have been 7. And then I remember Zach Thayer, a noob, got onto lap number 7 in the UTT, and he puffed out. And then we went to UTT 60, and then Provo got onto lap number 7, and he might have been the only guy, and he just squeaked across the line. But then all of a sudden we got to the finalists, and then we had 5 pilots get in the first round onto lap number 7. But they're like, oh, we had nothing left. So conservation and building, blah, blah, blah. We're seeing people fall out of the skies and not getting that magic 7 in, right? So we're destroying packs for the fast pilots. So, and then we look at our first to X races. When we do the championships, when we do the brackets, it's always a 90-second race, give or take. We take what's the laps? How do we leave enough time on the clock? So Sebring was first to 3. It was like a 90-second race. Mega Drone X, first to 5. It was like a 90-second race. I went through so many races. And so why don't we just do take battery out of the equation? And why don't we have, and this is like any other competition, why don't our qualifiers be the same length as our mains? And it wasn't just me. It sounds like it was, but why don't we just make 90-second races? So we're like, all right, everyone wants 4S. We want everyone to finish races. We don't want to destroy packs. MultiGP does not sell batteries. Okay. If we did, then we'd make 7-minute races. Good luck, guys. Need some new batteries? MultiGP.com. We got a store. Right now, you can buy gates, flags, and coming soon, 7-minute races, and you can buy batteries. We don't care. What is MultiGP? Buy pilots for pilots. We don't want, anyway. So we're like, okay, you guys want 4S? We want finishing races. So 90 seconds. Well, of course, well, that's not what we wanted. We wouldn't have voted that. We're like, okay, cool. Let's do it over, Now, we'll not be ruled by the internet, but obviously our fingers weren't on the pulse. Now, our pulse is all over the place. Sometimes it's major races. Sometimes it's fun flies. Sometimes we're pilots. Sometimes we're race directors. Sometimes we don't, we have people that aren't any of those things, that just like drone racing, that have a specialty in whatever. So, then we're like, okay, MultiGP, new vote, guys, new votes. Do you want here are all your options. Do you want 2 minutes, longer than 2 minutes, 90 seconds, 4S open, blah, 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 blah. So then the vote comes in. And then we take all the data from that result. If you just take out the times, right? I think open, here's what they voted. There's the popular vote and the electoral vote, okay? The popular vote, which is what you actually vote for, the number of ticket counts, was open 2 minutes. That was the popular vote, right? But the electoral vote, which was take your time out, and do you want open or 4S? 4S, all the 4S options outweighed the open options. So you have an electoral versus, the popular. And so we're like, okay, it's such a split decision that, we could make a decision from this, but you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Okay, let's do a third vote. We didn't want to do a third vote. We get egg in our face, but, this is a decision. We want everyone to be right, voices heard and so forth. So we were like, okay, we're going to say it's 2 minutes. We're not going to change that. Once again, open or 4S. And it was open by like 5 or 7, or it was 13%. I think the actual number is 13% on open. And then we're like, is it inconclusive? And then the vote was like, yes, but then, it wasn't inconclusive. The vote was 13%, which was enough for a majority. But then we also rubber stamped it. And Chris Thomas was like, I wanted to be open all along. And so he rubber stamped it. And so that's how we got to where we are. It's a long journey. But just like any other decision, I think we weighed it out enough. It was a painful process, but, now it's open limitations, and it's 2 minutes. The debates during the voting process, my good friend, Johnny Fly, good Facebook friend, I met him at like 2 events, but Johnny Fly did a great video about it. Brain Drain, Brian Morris did a great video. And if you see, watch their 2 videos, there's a lot of math and science and philosophy and theory in that. And, we made the right decision on their hypotheses and our vote. And, I think at the end of the day, it's not going to make a difference. And that's really what everyone's saying, that, nothing's really going to change. And, the open guys are still going to push to a certain point. And so that's the answer to that.
That is go ahead, Elvin.
As it is, we still don't do enough efficiency stuff. So, that's really what it's going to come down to in the end, whether or not you can efficiently run a 6S ship, or efficiently run a 5 or a 4, like right now, there's some smaller ships that are running really good lap times, good speed, getting, the 3 inchers. The 3 inchers lately have excelled. The 2.5 inchers have just been phenomenal over the last couple of months. And I think, we may find ourselves looking at that, as the size of the ship giving us a little bit more runtime, because it can be more efficient,
Yeah. I think like the competition is going to be the same, and it's fairer for everybody, you're going to have your pro pilots. They're always going to be fast. They're always going to be pushing it. And, now it's just, they're going to come down with a 6S pack with a little more power in it, even though Brain Drain's video is like, screw it, we're going to empty the tank anyway. But, right. I think for the majority, you're going to see them coming down and they're not destroying their packs. Their lap times, I think, are going to be similar. I don't think we're going to change there. And then people that aren't ready to make the jump, they weren't coming down with empty packs anyway. So now we can continue, and it's an even playing field. And I think everyone's cool with it. I think, but it was one of those decisions that, we, there's going to be people happy and not, but we beat that horse right into the ground, and I think we got what we wanted, and that was a majority, even though it's a slim majority of the pilots, being happy with the decision and excited to race under the rules. But ultimately, it's anyone can now race and should be able to have a little bit of power in the pack when it's all said and done.
I personally think it's interesting in the fact that it adds a little bit more strategy into what is otherwise a very competitive bracket already. So anything to make the race more interesting, I think is a good thing. But I'm actually very curious to see like how, because we do have a certain segment of pilots, and they're mostly from DRL, DR1, maybe DCL if they're over in Europe, that really understand what adding another cell or two will do, and I think they're going to take full advantage of that. But then you're going to
for sure.
You're going to have a huge bracket of people who don't understand, and this is where I think the frustration is going to come in, and I want to see if you agree, because the frustration is they're going to build a ship that is entirely like it'll fly for 30 seconds before it destroys itself. Literally will destroy itself. And I think people will blame either the rules or, how things were laid out, because they just don't understand how to build to the limitations of the hardware. Do you agree with me on that? Because that's what I think is going to happen.
No, I mean, okay, it's like any law, just because we made it legal. Like, look at the weed laws that are being rolled out everywhere. Well, you know what? The government, you're to blame for all my stupid decisions now that it's legal to smoke weed in my state. Like, no, you can't blame that, like, so
you watch.
I know people will 100%, 100%, it's like, and we get it all the time. Well, you made me do this, you forced that, and if it wasn't for this, I mean, for sure with politics, but I think from that end, like, we're not twisting your arm, to the best of our knowledge, even though it wasn't our basis for our decision, but to the best of our knowledge, you're going to be just as competitive with 4S, and it's going to be efficiency. I think, it adds more options now where, I'm looking at this XDC race, this XDC team race in Las Vegas. It's FPV light tracks, and it's almost as technical and intense as XDC2, and it's team racing. It's going to be Plinko more than anything. And, here pilots can roll up, and, they're not going to want that big, long run, the 6S that you needed for team racing in Sebring, even though we capped it at 4S. But you know what I mean? I mean, you're going to want something tiny. You need a 4-inch frame. Now, you don't want a 6S 4-inch frame to go through this obstacle course. It's not going to be to your advantage, especially with team racing where you're going to be landing anyway, or, so, it gives you more options where, okay, we have this big, wide open, sweepy course. Well, we're going to bring up the 6S. And then, the next course, it's tiny and technical, 3-inch, 4-inch. And, it's just one more quad. And I mean, aside from people like me that don't have time or knowledge, that are RTF right now, pilots love building quads, so many people are excited that it's now open limit, that they can now experiment, not just at home, but they can experiment with those new crafts at events.
Right.
It is going to be interesting. All right. So I just want quick predictions on, the cell limits. Okay. I'm going to give you mine. I'll ask for Elvin's, and then I'll ask for yours. So my prediction is, and you've already heard all of it, I think the pro pilots, the pilots that we all know by name, they're really going to take advantage of this, and they're really going to be fast, and they're going to get a lot of headlines for, they can run 6S and 4 or 5S. I think the majority of the big pilots are probably going to run 5S because it's a safer number to be at, and then there's going to be a lot of people blowing up drones. And you're gonna get like such like sporadic feedback that it's gonna be hard for you guys to figure out like what is going on this season. Elvin, what's your take on this?
I think 5S is going to be the go-to for probably about 30% of the market or racers, and I think it's going to be a lot less with 6S because it's so much harder to tune. For some people, they just don't understand that. You have to basically detune a quad every time you go up in voltage. And things change. TPA changes. All those eyes change. As you start to ramp up things quicker, and they need to respond faster, things change. So I think that it's gonna be a great thing, but I still think that efficiency is one of the things that we don't touch or we don't utilize enough. But here's one of those funny things I like to ask pilots. When the last time you weighed your quad? What? I don't even have a scale. Okay, you're out. You know what I mean? When the last time you check your motor draw? I don't know. I just used the one on the OSD. Oh, you're out. You know what I mean? There's a process to becoming the better pilot, and you have to go through all of these checks and balances to determine whether or not you utilizing your power to the most efficient way, which is going to get you across the line quicker, going to give you more runtime, going to make it so that you can actually take it a little easier in the process of your race and not have to possibly destroy your ship in the process of trying to get to the last race.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're going to see right on that same mark, maybe 30%, your top percentile here on this 5S. I think you're going to see lots of people dabbling with it, but when they actually go to an event, it's going to be Old Faithful. They're going to drop that 4S, right? Like, I look at my Vortex 180 Mini. I got 4S on it, which is way too much power for a guy who's only flown 30 packs. And I had tri-blades on it, which was way too much torque. But I just thought it was cool, and they're white, and they matched my frame and the cover. And it was easy to find in the field because I crashed a freaking lot. And I ended up like wrecking motors and ESCs and replacing stuff, and it caused me more problems. That now I'm down to just a regular 2-blade bi-blade, and I still got them 4S packs, and I'm happy, and I'm gonna be happy for a long time. So
got good run time.
Yeah. But I mean, just like I, made mention of, look at how FPV has got all these new skills to these people. Like, it's an eye opener. It's not just the camaraderie and yada yada, but people are learning how to video edit. And I think the whole efficiency thing is going to be something new to learn. No one was talking about the KV to cell ratio, or the prop pitch. No one was really talking about that when we went from 3S to 4S. Not that I remember. I was involved in many arguments and debates, and I obviously didn't weigh in, but I look at it from a competitive side. But when I did a series in Canada from 2015 to 2016 over the winter, I had like 5 different classes. I had a 3S class, I had a Spec 250 class, I had a 6-inch class, and all so. And I don't remember any of it. The KV was never part of it, but now it seems like it's going to be a big factor in this, and now you're going to see more people dabbling in it. I think lots of people are going to do it. Not many people are going to race it, but now this is a whole new thing that our industry is going to grow. Just as we have, so many good vloggers. Look at Code Red, Cody Matson. He has gone from zero to hero when it comes to his vlogging, and it's his editing, and he's learned a lot of that from being part of FPV, watching videos and other advice. I mean, the same thing I think we're going to see with those efficiencies, that people will watch that brain drain video or the Johnny Fly video and start maybe taking some notes and going, there'll be more people talking like Joshua Bardwell when it comes to efficiency of the powertrain. I think because of this. So again, positive, and I'm right with Mr. Miyagi there that, about your top 30% will be all 5s, and everyone else will be 4s until we hit that next plateau, which is next year.
The next plateau. Yep.
Brain Drain will be on 6 because he just heard that and he's like, you guys, you just gave away all my secrets. So.
Well, he did in his video. Crying out loud.
Right, you can't blame me.
And then we also have, there is something to be said with spec, and MultiGP had the spec program, 2017. We've extended it right up, like it basically started in June. Our first real big spec race was International Open, and we're going to carry it right through to 2018 International Open. That's the, you have your tattoo batteries or, your Emax motors and so forth. Yeah. But then we're going to launch a new spec racer right after International Open is our plan. And then, that's where you're going to see, a spec. So you'll have your KV limit, your cell limit, and that'll be a whole other race on its own, which people can be excited about. Version 1.0, the spec race, we've learned a lot. We have a lot, that's why we're pushing it forward right to International Open. We still have a long way to go with 1.0 to really, drive it home for our pilots and our sponsors that took part in that program. But, we had to start somewhere with that program. And now, even this discussion is now shedding a lot of light on that spec. Mm-hmm. Now, I believe that, we'll have a painful pull, it's alliteration, with the pilots, painful pull with pilots. And we'll get that spec. And, the whole idea of the spec was version 1.0 was so we could say, all right, last year, X amount were built. So now we're going to set the spec limit. And for all the manufacturers, it's going to cost you money in OEM to make sure that you meet that spec. But it's worth your while because we built so many last year. One of my favorite things that came out of, I feel like I'm a Night Fury fanboy, but Sean Taylor at the spec race course when we raced at Indiana in Muncie at the International Open, he was like, "Oh, it was a lot of fun," and he got eliminated. He was like, "Oh, it was a lot of fun, but you know what? Really, it should be 3S. That's what the spec should have been, And a 3S spec class that would have been a lot of fun, Instead of our current spec racer it's almost like an open, now. Previous to 4S thing, but it's such a fast frame. He's like, slow it down. And, that's going to be one of the things that I know for sure will be on that ballot that, maybe not a 3S'er, but maybe a slowed down 4S'er. And so that everyone think of, and this is not a Chris Thomas thing, even though everyone knows Chris Thomas loves go-karts, but when you go to go-karts, if it's a really good K1 speedway, number one, Chris Thomas always wins. Number two, it's so hard because everyone's just matted and you're like, come on, get by them. Right. And how exciting would racing be if we launched 8 and they're all like, come on, let's get by them. Right. So, I think that's a direction that we want to take the 4S or the 3S, whatever the spec race is and spec racer is. And when that decision starts to roll out, it's going to be June, I'm guessing. Again, this is under my disclaimer as an outsider with insider knowledge. But when we launch it in August, it's going to be even more awesome. I mean, nowhere to go but up.
So actually, you answered my last question, so that makes it easy for my last question because the last question was what happened to this spec and what you're going to do with it. So are we only going to have one more spec race before 2017 spec goes out of date, or are we going to have one more plus? Or do you not know?
I don't know. I know that we're going to do another cash race. I can't remember how much we gave away. I think it was 5,000 was the purse. The spec racing, or it might have been more. So we're going to do the same in 2018, I think. So we'll have one big one at International Open. We would love, this is MultiGP Joe talking, we would love more chapters to get behind this spec racer and have some spec races. And we would do anything that we can to promote it and get behind it. As for MultiGP hosting another spec program, hard for me to say. We have a million ideas, and it's just whether we execute it. So for sure, there's one big spec race. We have a really cool idea that it hasn't been released yet, and I don't know if it's going to come to fruition. But we actually have a program that we think will open it up, that more people will build them. and they'll have a reason to build them and fly them on a course, and then it'll help them with their journey to get to International Open. So there will be great value in building a spec racer. If I had the time, I would build one myself because the value will be there. Now, obviously, I'm not going to win the $5,000, but by building a spec racer, it will help you get to International Open in some way or reason, I believe.
Okay, that's a nice little teaser, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Okay, last thing before we get into upcoming events for 2018, because we are running really way over. That's my fault.
I'm just getting warmed up.
Joe, you can go on forever. I will say this, though, Joe, just as something that I would love to see out of the MultiGP is a program where we're increasing heat times, going from 2 minutes to 2.5 to 3 minutes. As I don't care if it could be like a category, a heat, a spec, but it's always been since I've been tracking drone racing, a race to the bottom when it comes to heat times. I'd love to see an effect where we have some category where it's a race to the top, where it increases in complexity every year and it pushes strategy and mechanics and people thinking about how to actually get there. It's like the Baja races, right? It's not about just starting. It's about, can your machine finish? And I think there's interesting things that can happen when it comes to stuff like that. Also,
and we don't want to.
Go ahead.
So we don't want to prohibit any creativity. And when MultiGP, we have the regional series, we have spec, we have our rules that we have put in place. We've actually rewritten our rule book, so we have like MultiGP rules. We have a code of conduct now that's going to be coming out, and then we have these sections, and we're going to always add to this, and we want, a race director or a chapter organizer to be able to look and have all these options in this rule book that they can use. They're not defined. Right now, they're not defined because we haven't dreamt them up. And we, as in people running races, anybody and everybody, X class, it's not a part of MultiGP right now. We have open, we have 4S, we have spec racing. But X class, that size is doing something, and
right.
It's exciting, and people are having races, and running through the MultiGP platform, and let's see some results. I went to Flight Fest West last year, and I saw them fly. It's really cool. Kevin Sellers, who is a legend and an OG, he is the best. He was the best guy that I saw flying the X-Class rig, and he freestyled better than some guys with a mini quad with that big hockey stick with motors on it. And then now Colby SFPV is killing the group, and it's a small group of these X-Class people, but them taking that initiative, that's something now that it came up on Facebook and in one of Chris Thomas's polls, because we love polls, up in the poll about what do you want to see at International Open, and X class, and already just seeing in the discussion, I'm like, yeah, we can do that for sure. Is it in our rule book? Is it something we promote? No, but let's someone's taking the initiative, let's do it. Longer races, and we have many outspoken chapter organizers, whether they're preliminary or tier 3, 2, or 1. But we don't care. We want that feedback, like, hey, 3-minute race. My first race was the Air Race Arena Showdown. It was with David French from Fat Shark. It was February 2015. I had about 21 pilots that came to it. Most of them were from the States, and one of them was a fast pilot who was our top qualifier, but left before the championships. Ryan Gurry, the chief engineer or whatever, technical officer of DRL, was at that race. You know how long the races were? 3 minutes. And his fastest frame only had 3 motors, if I remember correctly. Now we've gone in a different direction, but let's bring them back. Let's see some 3-minute races. If we're talking about efficiency, let's have efficient races. Make it a 6S, make it a 4S 3 minutes. Right. And if we can see those results and it gets up the chain, I mean, it's just something that we can take and share. We have the MultiGP News project that's Kalara and Realize and Reese really pushing that. We would love to, chapter innovations or something come up with that, where, you know, X class, 3-minute races, drag racing, you know, have it, you know, it's not an official
I sure
competition, but
love the drag race thing though.
it was so huge in Europe. I didn't get to see it because I was running the main course. But they took all these pilots out, and all the manufacturers built specific frames for drag racing. Sky Hero built a gorgeous one. I think they won, and it was like, and they were big. They were X-class size, dang near, and it was like go, and it's like I don't even know, a mile, just down to the end. And they were like, it was so awesome, so fun. You know, and that's something that we can bring to International Open, but it's something that, you know, if people are hosting those, then, you know, let's see it, the popularity, the feedback, how we, you know, is a 3-minute race better 6S or 4S, or, you know, we need to see that innovation. We don't want to curb it. We actually want to massage it. And if it's good, you know, let's, you know, collaborate all together and roll it out to the masses.
Let it grow.
Exactly. I think International Open, you know, that's an animal that, you know, is taken on its own direction. And I think, you know, we can see a lot more stuff like that, you know, we can roll out. You know, look at, you know, team racing. We did team racing at International Open. Was it the first time? No. You know, there was F3 Expo, the first team race, and then Aerial Grand Prix did a team race demo somewhere, and you know, Mega Drone X had a team race, and then Ursa did team racing, and then lots of people did team racing. International Open was not new team racing, but it did have something that was inspired by half of SELA's course, which is a MultiGP Tier 1 chapter. They had half their course up high so that you could run in and retrieve quads, and then the rest of the course was low or whatever. So Chris Thomas took, you know, that idea and designed the whole course up high so you could walk in underneath to retrieve quads. That was brand new, a new innovation at International Open that, you know, we saw in Sebring, where, you know, we provided the retrievers, but all the gates were up high. So if you hit the ground, you were done, and you could be retrieved that way. You know, but it's taking that idea and massaging it, and, you know, seeing what the popularity is, and International Open is a great stage for that. What I love about International Open is actually the Riot International Open. The title partner is Rotor Riot, and last year they were the title partner of the event, and I think they did like a couple of Facebook posts and one video, and they didn't know what it was, you know.
Right.
The event was very successful. You know, we knew what half of that event was going to be, you know, but now look at what that event is. Most successful event in the history of our industry. And, you know, it's just going to get, you know, with more of these innovations. You know, let's add some drag racing and some X class, and let's make sure that we efficiently use all the tracks instead of just being efficient on World Cup. So, you know, we can have all this stuff going on and make it, you know, continue the FPV theme park that we started with version 1 of International Open, which, you know, is going to be hard to top. I mean, even if we duplicate it, we're moving forward, and, you know, we're going to add all this stuff, and we don't want to curb any of that innovation.
Definitely. It's definitely going to be worthwhile to see open. Last thing, team spec. That's all I'm going to say. And then we're moving on to the next topic, which is big events coming up. Okay, so obviously the next big one is the Vegas team race, which you've already alluded to via the Sebring teams getting their ticket to go over there. Can you kind of elaborate on what's going on in Vegas?
So it's a big event. It is officially March 3rd. That if you're not invited, that you can check it out. It's a team race for $20,000. We have 6 teams from Sebring, the top 6. One team actually couldn't make it, so we bumped one in. So it's like Next Blade's our winner, Pyrodrone Junior. Then you have Heart of America FPV, Velocidrone, Next and Emax. I think those are the 6. And then we have a local team, which will be the Las Vegas Lights. And then we have Team Canada, the Mega Drone X Team Racing Champions. They are all getting free entry, and free hotel rooms at Bally's, which is our host for the team race. We're going to be in their show space where they have a lot of their magic shows and concerts and stuff, which is in essence a large outdoor tent, but it's set up year round. And it's got all kinds of video gear, show stage, a sound stage or whatever. So we'll be set up there at Bally's, and we're actually going to start Friday afternoon officially with our practice and dress rehearsals, yada, yada, yada. And then we pick up again Saturday morning, and then we start qualifying at about 1 o'clock Pacific, which would be about 4 o'clock Eastern on Saturday night, March the 3rd, and you'll be able to see the teams qualify. We'll be running in heats of 4, and they'll get 3 qualifiers, 15-minute durations, and it's your best round. So the number of laps that the team can do in their 15 minutes to select the top 4 to advance. So we'll take our field of 8 to our top 4. Then we'll take a lunch break, and then I think at 6 o'clock is when our opening ceremonies will start, which will be 9 o'clock Eastern on March the 3rd. And it's inspired, this is Harrison Gale, XDC from Las Vegas. It's inspired by the new Las Vegas Knights hockey team that we're doing team racing. We're not doing 100-lap endurance. We're doing 15-minute periods. So period number 1 is 15 minutes in duration. The 4 teams will fly. Then we take a stop. Then we retrieve quads. Then we do period 2, and we do another 15 minutes. And then we take their total between the 2 periods. We take their top 2 teams from there to the 3rd period, which will be a sudden death shootout. It'll be 15 minutes, 2 teams head-to-head for 15 minutes, and then the most laps endurance will win the title. There's $20,000 in cash. I think the payout the last place team gets $500. So 8th. Every team member, whether they're a pilot, a captain, or a pit person, will get $100 on top of their great vacations, their time in Las Vegas. And then the winning team will get $10,000, and it's teams of 5, so that'll be like $2,000 a piece. And the money is all split up. So everyone gets a piece of the prize pool, and it's going to be exciting. It's on a FPV Light Tracks course, which is very technical. It's very tight. And I think it's going to be like Plinko. You're going to see a lot of crashing and the next guy out. A lot of crashing, the next guy out. But hopefully they learn the lines, and it's a smooth enough course that it'll be engaging. One of the things that we are doing, we've stepped it up. So if you look at Mega Drone X, we had assigned retrievers, and 2 of them here on the podcast, and it wasn't me. So just out there risking your lives, retrieving quads out in all those humps. We took that out of the equation. Right. You have International Open, the gates are all high in the air, and every team provided someone, and we provided helmets and vests. And while that was safer, still not the safest, especially where, in Vegas, we're going to be in a really confined space. In Sebring, the next generation, we did gates in the air with assigned retrievers. And here in Vegas, we're doing no retrievers.
Oh boy.
So yeah, this is where it needs to be. So 15-minute periods, I think, this is something we'll see. I talked about how, there's a new generation every time we do an event. 15 minutes, maybe we make it shorter the next time. Maybe we make it longer. I don't know. We've got to see how it happens. But you go out, you crash out, you put your quad on a graveyard channel. So you use your smart audio, or you use a switch on your controller to talk to your flight controller, and that hopefully is hooked up to your VTX somehow. And then boom, either it shuts off your VTX, or you go to the graveyard channel, and your next quad takes off. We have 15-minute periods, so after the 15 minutes, we'll go out, retrieve all the quads, and then we'll get set for the next 15 minutes. We're hoping there's not much crashing. Seeing the course, I think there's going to be a lot of crashing. And the other thing too is, we have a pretty good RF environment in there, and I've been able to, it always comes down to the last minute test to make sure that there's nothing in there. But the graveyard channel is actually legal, so we're using A and F bands, and I have a channel right in the middle that they both are on, which is 5805, and it's like 70 megahertz off of the next channel for seat 2 and 3. So they can dump all those quads. So we can have all those quads out there just dying on 5805, and we can keep racing. So that's going to be part of the program. Race Flight, Preston, even though he doesn't have a team in this event, he has obviously sponsored pilots, and he's really involved, I think, with Team Next Blades. He has already designed something on the Switch, so that instead of messing around with smart audio, you'll flick a switch and a Tramper Unify will go to a dead channel right away. And I think pit mode, no guarantee. But this is, same as NASCAR and tires. Like, this is team racing that's leading innovation. Can you imagine just in any race, like if how many times have we said, and I know I've said it 100 times minimum, when we get a quad stuck in the roof, how awesome would it be just to shut it off?
Yep.
So now with Race Flight, you can, which is amazing. So, and I know Clean Flight, I saw them do it in October of 2016. I haven't seen the innovation, but I know Clean Flight, you can do it. Hopefully they're working in a beta flight. One of the things that Team Pyrodrone Senior and Junior did at Sebring, which was genius, because this technology was not there, they had it so if your quad crashed, your battery would eject and your XT60 would disconnect. So when you crashed, you could launch your next quad. Very ingenious. They got it dialed in. So again, back to this. There's no retrieving, so that's not a thing in play. Team racing is very exciting. We said from when we did it in the Georgia Dome with F3 Expo, we're like, this is the future. Mega Drone X, we're like, this is the future. World Drone Pre, even the pilots that sat there, even though their team pilot only flew 4 times over the event, they flew 0 times, but they were a pit person and they're like, this is the future, this is more exciting. Sebring, we just finished qualifying, or we just finished the individual championship, and all those pilots were like, this was the most fun we've ever had. Team racing, it's now got another progression. We're trying something new. And now, that could positively affect individual racing. It could positively affect freestyle at the International Open. If a quad goes down out in the cornfield, turn it off. Just
right.
Being able to do that, is coming a long way. Yeah. So that's March the 3rd. The live stream is going to start, give or take, about 4 o'clock Eastern with qualifying, and then about 9 o'clock Eastern with the championship. The championship is 3 periods with 10-minute breaks in between, so it's only about an hour and a bit long. The teams are amazing. The course is going to look beautiful. One other thing that we touched on a while ago was LEDs, and Ready Made RC and Pyrodrone and a couple other places, they sell color selectable LEDs, and all of our teams are using color selectable LEDs. They've got to pick, even though we have 4 channels, 4 colors, they've picked all of their colors. Next Blades is green, matches their jersey. Emax is red. Team Canada is red. And so every heat, the color will be in tune with the team. The graphics, we have Adrian, the guy who did our live stream for Reno and Sebring, running our live stream in conjunction with a local production company. So it should be an even baller live stream than ever before. But the LEDs will match the teams. It'll be a little easier to follow along line of sight and even FPV. And then, of course, when they merge up into the final 4, qualifying position will be priority. So if Emax and Team Canada make it and they're both red, one of them will have to turn white. It's all good. We'll figure it all out. And we're really excited. It's the next generation of team racing. And it's the biggest team racing purse. I mean, other than Dubai, even though that was a team with 1 pilot. This is team 3 pilots, pit guy, but $20,000 purse. I mean, that's nothing to blow your nose at.
Nothing to blow your nose at, especially for a burgeoning sport. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, Joe Scully's a little verbose on some things. So also coming up in 2018 is the collegiate race. I'm going to skim over that because we're running low on time. I have to get to bed. I apologize. Collegiate guys, we'll talk about you later. Regional series.
Yeah, what you should do is reach out to Tyler, and I'll give you his contact info. Tyler and his team are doing a great job on that. And they would love to talk to you about it.
Definitely. We will definitely try to reach out before. Is there a date for that yet? That's the only thing I want to talk about.
It's mid-April, so the April 14th weekend, and it's Tyler Landers of the Purdue Drone Club, and they've actually launched an association, and the name kind of escapes me right now. But
okay,
yeah, this should be a good one. We talked about it in the first half. That it was an amazing event last year.
Okay, so Collegiate Open, we'll definitely put that in the books for us to talk about a little bit later. Regional Series is starting to spin up, so all your MultiGP chapter guys, definitely go out there, read the stuff. I think they opened up the regional qualifier to all chapters, so if you want to run one to try to feed your regional finals, definitely look into that. I know our chapter is going to be doing one, and a bunch of chapters around here, actually. So that's something very serious to look at. It is a planned track, so definitely make sure that you have the space because it is actually a very large track. Just short notice for you guys. Anything you want to add to that? Be quick, Joe.
It's awesome. Yeah. So we wanted more participation on the, all chapter levels. And that was, from our tier 1 feedback. So we want pilots to go to more events. So it's unlimited qualifiers that people can attend within their season. Every chapter is allowed to do one. And it is a course that we just released, and it's on Velocidrone right now. You don't even have to do anything magical. It's one of the standard scenes in Velocidrone. You can fly the 2018 regional qualifier course. From there, the top 100 will advance to their regional final, and instead of 14 regions from last year, we've moved it to 6. And the plan, and I hate the P word, but the plan is that myself and some core team members of MultiGP will be at all 6, which means it'll be a great live stream. It'll be a great experience. We're setting up the course, so every course should remain the same. We're there to help our local contacts in hosting that event, and we want every one of those regional finals to be huge. So we're capping it at 100. We're also this year new, where there is a way that international pilots can get in. So if they're from Australia or England or Canada or Mexico, there is a way for them to work their way into a regional final, and from there we're taking, once again, the top 150 pilots to our national championships. It is in a different location at a different time. It is in the southeast region, and it's in December, I believe. And we are still working on plans with that, but it will be an awesome national championship with the top 150 pilots in America. So we're really excited about the 2018 series, from the regional qualifier, the tier 3, 2, and 1 chapter level, right through to our national championships. Really excited about how this has come together, from our executive team of MultiGP, our tier 1 chapters, all contributing to this. And then, of course, with our polls, our multiple polls, our painful polls with pilots, have created this regional series. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait.
Can't wait. Okay. Following that, we'll talk about nationals in a second. Obviously, you've heard both of us talk spewing love of IO. IO is going to be a great event. If you're going to attend one, I recommend IO or MDX, because I have to give love to MDX if it's going again. What can you share about IO? Because obviously there's not a lot of information out there.
International Open. So Rotor Riot is back. They are still going to be our presenting partner and a big part of what we do. They are going to be even more hands-on than last year. So you're actually going to be able to take clinics, and not just how to do flippy floppies with Stinger Swarm, also how to build. So they're going to do like a lot of stuff. They're really excited about it. We're really excited about it. That relationship with Rotor Riot. So the freestyle line will be back. World Cup was our most popular track. We're going to have 2 World Cup tracks, identical. But the whole competition, every one of those courses, we actually are working on a system, and this isn't official, but basically to be in our World Cup, you have to be like in the top 10 on one of the tracks. Like we're going to make it so that track in the back corner can get you to the World Cup championship, but give a reason for everyone to go around. Version 1, we learned a lot. And, as I touched on tonight, let's, dual purpose some of these tracks. So you might see some X class out there. You might see a senior race. I'm almost going to guarantee it, even if I have to sponsor it myself. One of those tracks
I'll be 50.
It's 40 and over. It's 40 and over. So I'm in with you. So we'll have that. And last year's 305 pilots. This year we're anticipating many more. One of the questions that came up, I think in the call today with Rotor Riot, which I wasn't invited to, if there's more pilots, will you be able to handle it? And the answer unanimously is yes, of course we are. If you're at International Open, you saw how busy World Cup was, and Rookie Track, our second most popular track, but almost every other track sat empty with like 10 or 15 pilots at it for the most part. So better, more reason to go to all those tracks, more efficient use of all those tracks. And, we can do 64 in the air every 7 minutes. So if we have, 600 pilots, then everyone can fly, more than once every 45 minutes, we're not going to get to 700. And of course, a lot of this is the camaraderie and so forth, but we can handle way more than the 305, and everyone saw how we could accomplish that. And we'll have so many more, competitions and, lots of great things, prizes, and once again, I mean, it's going to be the best events of the year, whether you're 5S and you're killing it and you're top qualifier in your region, or you're with me and you're only 30 packs in on your RDF. Come on out, and you can pit, and you can pit right beside and power up right beside the fastest pilots in the world. We don't care if you beat them. Come fly with us. Have fun. That's the International Open, and it's going to be huge, and way more amazing than last year. And it's such a huge claim to make, because last year was so great, but I know we'll deliver on that again.
Okay, there you go. Do we have an estimated date on I.O.?
It has been released, and it's right around the start of August. I think August 6th.
August. Okay, there you go. August, book it down. Come and enjoy yourself. Midwest, August, good weather in the Midwest around August. So have fun with that. Okay, so let's go down.
Still need bug spray.
Still need bug spray. Let's go down to some really big national races. Korea obviously is going to be doing the big race again. That's going to be in September. Joe might not make it, I don't know, to that one or not, but definitely keep an eye out if you enjoy good racing there. Not going to spend much time on there, but Korea knows how to put on an event. We've already told you why. Pay attention. That's all I'm going to say on that one. Obviously, Joe also said December is going to be MultiGP's Nationals. It's going to be south. It has to be south because the rest of the country is going to be cold. Hey, choose Miami. It's a nice place. No, I don't know where you're going to be. But anything you want to share about Nationals for MultiGP real quick?
Well, I think, and I don't even think we have location. I know we have a few in mind, but to the best of my knowledge, it's not going to be an airport. As much as we love airports, and look at how great Sebring was, and Reno was a great event last year. One of our plans here for the national championship is another location, trying to find one that affords us what we can do at in Muncie. We do want to make sure that we can get spectators. We do want to make sure that we have the resources and ability to do great broadcasts via live stream. We do want to make sure that we're in a good travel center. There are a lot of things that afford us, the best venue possible, and the best. There's a lot of things that will affect the best venue. It may be good to get to, but it may be a terrible venue for another reason. We want to make sure that we can do multiple courses or not have a curfew. So those are like our two things. So, and we don't want to have a roof on the top. So we want to make sure, we want to get back to 2016 where the finalists can have like 30 packs of practice on the course. We're not guaranteeing that right now. We don't even know where the venue is, but it will be awesome. It'll be 150 pilots. They will fly a lot, and it's going to be in paradise. It's the first week of December, the 6th and 9th. And so, you'll have to try and save up some vacation days for that one, and it'll be worth it. Well worth it.
Okay. Last one we're going to talk about, and we're just going to skip over IDRA, DRL, DCL. Those are all big leagues, and they have their own respective media channels. Go check them out. But you definitely need to keep those guys on your radar. There's just a bunch of them. I do want to touch upon the FAI, mostly because we have so many international listeners, right? We touch upon Korea because we have a lot of international listeners. FAI, they're going to be hosting a nationals. Joe, tell me what's going on over there.
So the FAI is the Federation Aeronautical Internationale, which is French, which is basically the world's leading authority for all air sport. Red Bull Air Racing, like you used to see in bars and now you see on your Apple TV, is under FAI jurisdiction. Any biplanes, parachute competitions, anything in the air that's competition is under the FAI, and that's worldwide. The RC Heli competitions go under that. Right. For the last 3 years, they have recognized drone racing. I'm trying to remember Vince B. He is the first ever FAI quote-unquote world champion from 2016. They are rolling out a world championship, and that's under the FAI, and there's a huge application process for that. But I think a lot of people will be watching that one. It'll be in China. It's in Shenzhen. That's tech capital of China, at least for FPV. That's where Fat Shark's headquarters is, and the immersion factory, and I think Get FPV Lumineer has their factory there. Shenzhen is really where it's at in China, and that's where they're going to be hosting the FAI World Championship. The FAI is a great organization. It's a large organization. And I think a lot of people here in North America have a disconnect with what that organization is. And what I'll tell people is, if you're an American, you know what the AMA is. It's the association, like MultiGP is a special interest group within the AMA. There's 80,000 members of the AMA annually, and X amount of fields and yada, 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 yada. That is actually a part of the FAI. In fact, the AMA pays membership on the AMA individual members' behalf to the FAI to be a member of that organization. And so, and all these organizations across Europe, the AMA is part of the FAI, but the American translation is the authority that the FAI has is the same in America as the FAA and the AMA merging. The FAI has that much authority, almost as much authority as the FAA, and more than enough authority, more than the AMA when it comes to Europe and Asia and Africa and Australia and even in America, even though it doesn't seem to be as recognized as much. But they are spending a lot of time, money, and resources and rolling out worldwide. They are going to host this world championship, and it'll be one to watch. I think it'll be in about December, and there'll be questions on who's representing, but just like anything, drama and politics, and that's one big worldwide event. Just like the one in Korea, the IDSC, they'll be bringing in representatives from all kinds of different countries, and it'll be another one to watch as long as the live stream doesn't get turned off. And
shot across the bow.
Yeah, that's just bad luck. That it is what it is. As for us, we have
events though. They got 10 sanctioned events.
Yeah,
ready. And all over the world. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, it's great. For us, me, very involved in the politics, and I thrive in there, and I like it. And I've gone through this in rodeo. That's where, I've had boycotts, and I've had organizations split, and I've had like my dad standing beside someone that he's competed against and is basically friend and family for 20, 30 years. And they won't make eye contact over a split. Like, I mean, it's almost like not my president in rodeo politics. I mean, we
have that too.
We see that in drone racing, right? And so, you know, am I biased? Do I have my own opinion? Yes. But when it comes to the average person that's in this, what I say, and I said it in rodeo, even though I was on one of the sides in that rodeo fight, like burn that guy, screw that guy. But what I tell the competitor, the person with an interest, whether it's mild or intense, is use it to your benefit. You have all these organizations vying for your participation, whether it's your membership dollar, your entry fee, or just you showing up. They, you know, if you sit there and play your cards right as a participant, then, you know, they're just going to keep reaching out to you. If you like go running and flocking to them, then, you know, your deal is never going to be as good. But like right now, you got ISDC doing a world championship. You have the FAI doing a world championship. You have IDRA doing a world championship of hula hoops in a banquet hall, but it's a world championship nonetheless. You have MultiGP with all of their championships. You have, I mean, all these different organizations that are regional, national, and all these international events that are just vying for the participants. You know, there's organizations that have come and gone, and we've learned from them and we remember them, and, you know, we may have fought with them. We may have got along with them. It's all part of our history. But for a pilot, it's great. You know, let's see, you know, more of these events competing with a prize pool. You know, as a politician, I'll be sitting there going, these are the benefits of coming to this race. This is the one you should think about. This is the one that matters. I mean, because that's my job as a politician or a representative. But as a pilot, how awesome would it be if you have me sitting at an event saying, come fly here, my purse is $30,000, and the competitor is over there going, well, no, come fly here. And all of a sudden his pot is 30,000, 40,000. All this politics is a pain. It's annoying. You know, people call it ruining the hobby. Them whining about it is ruining the hobby. Just be quiet about it. Make the right decision that's for you. If you are passionate about it, contribute to a solution, join an organization, and, you know, let's work together on a solution. But, you know, let politics play its course. And in the process, the biggest winner is always going to be the participant and the pilot. So, I mean, you know, looking at 2018, you know, there's going to be a lot of races. Some will be great, some will be good, some will be mediocre. But regardless, you know, we'll have fun. There'll be champions crowned. People will make money, and we'll learn from it. And then the next year, hopefully, be better. And, you know, we really need to see more activity. You know, we're really excited. We're really excited with MultiGP, with this new regional series where unlimited regional qualifiers within your season. More participation, more people, more chapters working together, and you know, that's just a small part of what we're doing. We want to see this industry continue to blossom. Right now, you know, it's growing out, but it's not really growing up anymore. We're not seeing, you know, all these new racers. You know, we're seeing things come and go, but we just need to keep breathing in that new blood and, you know, making it a great, you know, why we all fell in love with it. We got to keep waving that flag, bringing more people in, making sure that their experience is the best it can be, and, you know, keep pushing onwards, upwards, and, you know, we'll continue to see growth. Maybe not as rapid as it was from 15 to 16, or 14 to 15, but you know, we all can continue pushing this forward and better the hobby. That should be the new hashtag is bettering the hobby. You know, hashtag bettering the hobby 2018. I'd love to see it. And there's many things that we can do, from event organizers to pilots to podcasts. Let's keep pushing forward and doing the best we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Best advice I've heard from Joe Scully. And Joe, I will tell you this. Our longest podcast was an hour and 20 minutes, and that was with Trappy. You beat it by
That's done.
40 minutes. Okay, so this
That's
has been a
done.
long. Yes, this has been a very long podcast. This is 2 full podcasts, and Joe Scully can continue to talk. You can tell he's a marathon runner.
I'm just getting warmed up.
He's just getting warmed up.
That's right.
I think it's going to be split into 2. It's all good.
Yeah.
I think it's entertaining. I hope it's entertaining. So.
There's a lot of good information there. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of what you conveyed information about upcoming events because, not all of us, read every blog post that's out there. It's just life, right? I will say this, though. I think you're right. And, there's been a lot of racing fatigue. I've seen this personally throughout the whole nation. And I just want to, tell those guys if racing isn't your passion anymore, this sport is bigger than you just being the pilot. There are other things you can do to help contribute to growing this because for people like us who track metrics, trust me, we've noticed a downtick and we're doing our best to bring everything up because there is growth going on, but like you said, it's growing out, it's not growing up, and we're still not sure why. We're a little confused. So, yeah.
You're gonna see that. I mean, the numbers that I talk about are all the big event numbers, and so we started off Sebring, from 118 pilots down to 105. You look at Mega Drone X, and we hit our cap both times, and I think it was easier the second time. Unfortunately, we couldn't sell more. I think that would have been a good metric, but we're seeing chapter activity. We're seeing new chapters come to MultiGP. We're seeing attrition for sure. You're going to see attrition with anything, but I think we have to keep pushing forward, and we are. I don't think there's anyone that isn't, but being a part of the solution is definitely where we need to be. And that's the only thing that we can do is just keep looking at it and making it better. I think if someone were to join, these new people joining our mids now are getting such a better experience than 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And you guys have made mention, so many times on your podcast of, even previous to that, like, you didn't have a YouTube video. You didn't have a Bardwell or a Project Blue Falcon JC video to look at.
You had RC model reviews.
That was it.
That was it.
Maybe Tim Nilsson wrote a manual about it. You didn't have that. Now everyone has that. And from the race experience, like I remember being proud of having 100 pilot race and they flew 3 times a day. Now I'm like so giddy that I hit 5 and I could have hit 6, at a race if I didn't have the sun or, like we've improved the experience. I think from a building, getting into it, from a participating, and we just got to keep moving and make it better and better and better and better. And hopefully, we also have the sponsorship thing right now where, we're not seeing the same sponsorship, the same excitement and engagement. And we need to solve that. It's just one of many problems. How do we solve that? Well, the manufacturers are also saying that they're seeing the same downticks and downturns, or many of them are smart. And I explain the theory, like if you pick a product, like, what was your best year? This was our best year. Who else sold your product? This person. One person? Yeah. Now, how'd you do this year? It wasn't as good. How many people sell your product? 15.
Everybody.
Oh, so, okay. But now, so how many did you sell? Well, about the same as before. Okay, like multiply that by 15. Okay, that's a lot of your product, isn't it? Yeah. The market is growing. It is growing,
Right.
But, we have to, in one direction. We have to push. We have to make sure that it's a focused effort, I think.
Definitely. It's tough, and there's challenges to every growing sport, and we're here to try to make it better. That's all we can do. All right, Joe Scully. You know what? A 4-hour marathon's only a quarter for you, so we're gonna give you 3/4 break for podcasting. I don't know. I'm tired. I don't know about you, Elvin. Are you tired? What are your final thoughts?
I've been trying to fight the yawn over here for the last 2 hours.
It is 1:30 a.m. We are wrapping up. Joe Scully, thank you very much. Where can people reach you before we get out of here?
You can find me on my website, which is fpvracingevents.com. I'm also all over social media using those handles on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and so forth. Also, if you want to reach out on email, a little easier, would be joe@multigp.com. And I am always here to help. I'm always deleting fake friends on Facebook so that because I keep hitting the cap, but I'm doing all kinds of support. If you have questions, ideas, anything, I'm always here to talk about all the things that we talked about here tonight. Regulation or how to run events, or if you need some technical assistance, that and I do that all for free. And hopefully I can. Yeah, hopefully I can steal ideas from other people someday. But seriously, joe@multigp.com to reach out to me, whether it's MultiGP related, drone racing related, or whatever. I'm always here to talk shop, obviously. And this is why I do this podcast once a year, because it's a year's worth every single time.
Dude, there's a lot to cover, and we just kind of, we do the little gloss over the top. But we always appreciate Joe's time. There's a wealth of knowledge there. And every year, we learn something new. We discard some bad ideas, and we keep going. And it's always exciting to talk to him. All right, we're out of here. I'm calling the end of the show. It is 4 hours and 10 minutes. That's how long the podcast was.